Well, I'm not breaking any news here. Obviously, if you're a Mets fan, you know what happened yesterday. I went live for the end of the game. I was really upset during the game, after the game, watching the Mets just get absolutely embarrassed once again, going back to being the LOL Mets, the little brother Mets, just the loser Mets that they always have been, that we thought maybe had changed, and it really didn't. So during the game, after the game, I was upset. And by the way, Mets fans, we're going to get chirped by other fans of other teams because we deserve it. Because in this offseason and in the beginning of the season when we were all, celebrating that we got Juan Soto and look at how good this team is and we're going to be good for the next 10 years and we're never going to be the LOL Mets again, well, we are again. So they're going to chirp us. They're going to talk. It's going to happen. You have to just take it. Because we talked when we were up. You got to let them talk when we're down. That's the way it goes. But that being said, I was upset during the game, after the game, embarrassed, still embarrassed. But now I kind of feel content with the loss. After sleeping on it and whatever, I woke up this morning feeling fine. Not because I'm happy they lost, or not because I'm coping, but I'm happy because I never have to see Cedric Mullins put on a Mets uniform again. And I'm happy that I never have to see a Mets starting pitcher fail to go into the fourth inning. And I'm happy that I don't have to see a bullpen who can't hold a 6-run lead in the 6th inning. I'm happy that I don't have to see an offense that gets paid all this money that talks about being the best offense in baseball go lifeless for days and weeks at a time. And mostly I'm just happy that I don't have to be tortured by this Mets team night after night after night. It was a miserable season, a torturous season, and one that really had no redeeming qualities. A couple redeeming qualities. But for the most part, this was just an awful season. And hopefully we never have one like it again. But they are the Mets, so you never know. And one good thing to come out of this season is that I think we're going to see wholesale changes. Now, after the game, Andy Martino basically right after the game tweeted out that the Mets will not be changing managers. Carlos Mendoza is safe. He's not going anywhere. Personally, I disagree with that. Not that Andy Martino is incorrect. I think he is. I don't think Mendoza is going anywhere. But I disagree with the decision. Not because I think Carlos Mendoza is some terrible manager and doesn't know baseball. And I don't like calling for firing of people. I don't like to see people lose their jobs. That's not what this is about. But when you have a team with this much talent, especially offensively, who can't hit, at least half of the time, and a pitching staff that, even though they've had a lot of injuries and there was issues, you can't have your starting pitchers give you 3 innings. And you can't have a bullpen. The way he used the bullpen was awful at times. And when you have a collapse like this, and it wasn't really a collapse, it was just kind of a slow burn that you could see coming from a mile away, and maybe we tried to pretend it wasn't happening, but it clearly was all season long. They were just slowly melting down throughout the season. Someone has to take the blame for that. And something Carlos Mendoza is doing isn't resonating with the team. The manager is where the buck stops. We could talk about Stearns and what a terrible offseason he had and what a terrible trade deadline he had. But David Stearns isn't going anywhere. You know that for a fact. He's going to get 5 years here, at least, to put his vision of the team forward. Mendoza's the guy who should be falling on his sword because he's the one that is in the clubhouse. And if there's issues in that clubhouse, he's the one who's supposed to take care of it. And obviously, he needs to say something. He needed to say something. He can't say anything now. It's over. But he needed to fire them up. He needed to do something different. And all you heard from him every night was, we're too talented to be this bad. We're going to come through. We're 1 hit away. We're 1 game away. We're 1 swing away from really breaking out. And it never happened. So you could say all you want, I have all this talent, we're going to be fine. And that was the arrogance of this team. This 2025 Mets team, the biggest problem was their arrogance. And it came from their manager, and it came from the organization. Well, we're so good. We're going to be fine. Don't worry. We'll be fine. We're good. We have Juan Soto. We're going to be fine. And I think that carried over through the entire season, and they just never thought that this was possible. They thought eventually they would just turn it on, go into the playoffs, get hot at the right time, and maybe win it all. Didn't happen. And it was never going to happen because of that mindset. You look at a team like the Marlins, they don't have half of the talent that the Mets do. And yet they fight. And they're coming at you. And they're relentless. And they get base hits. And they move the line. And they just put pressure on you. Look at the Milwaukee Brewers, who had the best record in baseball. They're the same way, with more talented players than the Marlins. They're relentless. They come at you. Base hit after base hit. Double. Then maybe they hit a 3-run home run. The Mets were live by the home run or die by the home run all season long. And that's why they were very frustrating to watch. So hopefully there's going to be wholesale changes with this Mets team. Now, if Mendoza is not going to be the sacrificial lamb here, there at least has to be major shakeups on the coaching staff. Honestly, for me, everyone should be gone, except for maybe Anton Richardson, who has really the best first base running coach in baseball. I mean, look at Juan Soto getting 38 stolen bases this year. He's the only one who should stay. I don't care about Jeremy Hefner and how he's a wonder boy and he fixes pitchers. He didn't do it this year. He just didn't. You have pitchers out there nibbling, having 70, 80 pitches in the third, fourth inning. Like, his message isn't resonating with these pitchers either. And I think we're going to have a much different pitching staff next year. I think it's going to be different going forward. But get rid of Chavez and Barnes. That's step one. Those guys have to be gone. You have to get a real hitting coach in there who isn't so obsessed with showing everything on the iPad and analytic and, take this pitch and look for this pitch. How about a hitting coach that says, go up there and if there's a pitch in the zone, swing at it? Or how about look fastball and adjust to the changeup or the curveball? That's the way that the best teams are. They're not going up there saying, I'm only swinging if it's a slider, or I'm only swinging if it's a fastball. That's why you saw so many times this year, fastballs right down the middle of the plate for strike 3, with the batter standing there with his bat on his shoulder. Because they're guessing at pitches, they're looking for a specific pitch, and if they don't get it, they're not swinging. So they need to be gone. Bench coach, pitching coach, third base coach, everybody gone. That has to happen. Start fresh. If you're going to keep Mendoza, give him a whole new coaching staff. It has to happen. Will it? I don't know. But to me, that has to be a minimum of what happens in terms of this coaching staff. I think Mendoza should be gone. I think they should start fresh. But if Mendoza's going to be there, you need a whole new coaching staff. Also, you're going to need a roster shakeup. Because this core, I've said it a few times here, has failed time and time again. They are soft. This is a soft group of players who try to get by on talent alone, and it's never going to work. Last year, they got through on vibes. That's all it was. It was a fluke. They got through on OMG and Grimace, and the players were amped, and the fans were amped, and it just happened to work. They got hot at the right time, and everything worked the way, as good as it possibly could, and they lost in the NLCS to a clearly better team. And you didn't really get better in the offseason. Yes, you added Juan Soto, but the pitching got worse. This team needs a whole new bullpen. This team needs, a new starting staff, a new starting pitching staff. If you look at the free agents on this team, you have Alonso, who will opt out, and we saw after the game, right after the game ended when he was interviewed, he said he will be opting out. Didn't love the timing of it, but that's what happens. When you're a Boris client, as soon as the season ends, you're into the offseason, and you're trying to get that contract. That's what Boris wants him to do. If you're represented by Boris, that's what's going to happen. We loved it when Juan Soto did it last year, when right after the World Series, he said, I'm going to go to whoever appreciates me the most and whoever wants me the most. We loved it when Juan Soto said that, so we can't hate on Pete Alonso for that. When Garrett Cole was in with the Pirates a few years ago before he signed with the Yankees, right after the game, he took off the Pirates hat and put on the Boris hat. Because that's what Boris clients do. Boris wants to get you the most money he can because then he makes more money, so it's all business. And you can get mad at Pete if you want, but it was always going to be that way. He's opting out. He's already said it. You have Edwin Diaz, who's likely to opt out as well. After the game, he said he has to sit down and discuss it with his family, and he wants to come back. And I would love to have Diaz back. Maybe he doesn't opt out, but most likely he does. Or maybe the Mets go to him and say, let's just put a couple more years on your contract at the same number and let's figure it out like that. That's very possible as well. I could see that being worked out pretty quickly. But the Mets have some other guys, big guys leaving. You have Marte, who was a pretty big part of this team. There was stretches where he might have been the Mets' best hitter this year. Crazy as that sounds, there was times where you trusted Marte up at the plate more than Soto or more than Lindor or more than Alonso at times. Definitely more than Vientos and Beatty and all those other guys. Marte was one of the more consistent hitters the Mets had, and he'll be gone. I don't see him coming back unless it's like a 1 year, $3 million deal just to sit on the bench, not play very much, and maybe be like a team leader kind of guy. Maybe, but I don't see that really happening. Mullins, gone. Good riddance. Get out of here. Winker never was healthy all season long. Did not contribute to this team whatsoever. Love Winker. Thought he brought good energy last year. This year was non-existent. Helsley, gone. See ya. Tyler Rogers. I would like to have him back if the number's okay. If you can get him without breaking the bank. Wouldn't mind Rogers being back. Ryan Stanek. See ya. Don't want if they even mention bringing back Ryan Stanek after this season, I don't think I'll attend a game. Can't stand the dude. I know he had some big moments. He was able to kind of save the season a week or two ago with a big performance. Gregory Soto, gone. See ya. Can't throw strikes. Inconsistent. So the Mets have some free agents, and I don't think most of them are coming back. Except for maybe Alonso. It's possible they could work out a deal. I don't really see Alonso coming back, if I'm being honest. He's going to get a lot of money, and more importantly, he's going to get the years that he's looking for. I think someone's going to give him 5 years for $25 million. I think he's going to get 5 years, $125 million. And if there's a bidding war, and if there's a couple teams going in, maybe it gets up to $150 million. And I don't think the Mets are going to pay that for Alonso. I think if he's willing to take 3 years, 3 years, $90 million, I think the Mets would do that. But I don't think they're willing to go more than 3 years with Alonso, and so I think he ends up walking. I just think there's going to be, it's not like last year. Last year he was coming off of a terrible season, maybe the worst of his career, and he didn't really have any suitors. It was really the Mets and we heard maybe the Blue Jays. But other than that, we didn't hear anything about Alonso. So I think there will be teams looking at him this offseason, and if the Mets want him back, they're going to have to pay. And he's going to go to whoever pays him the most money. That's what a Boras client does. Diaz, I think he's likely to come back. I don't know if he'll opt out and go to free agency and come back, or the Mets will just add a couple years to his deal. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think Diaz comes back. Everyone else, I think, is probably gone. So you're going to need a whole new bullpen. You're going to need, a couple position players just to replace those guys. You're going to need a whole new bench, a whole new bullpen, and you're going to have to do something with starting pitching. And this video isn't going to be about what the Mets are going to do going forward. This is kind of a goodbye to the 2025 Mets, good riddance to the 2025 Mets, and let's move on. After this video, I'll be making videos about who's potential trade targets and who's potential free agency targets and what they're going to do moving forward. But right now, this is about saying goodbye and good riddance to the shit show we saw for all of 2025, at least since June. I think there's also some trade candidates that the Mets have. I think we've seen the last of Jeff McNeil. I think he's very likely to be traded. I don't think he fits with this team. I think his attitude rubs people the wrong way, and he doesn't hit enough anymore to excuse that. If he's hitting .320 and leading the National League in batting average, you can deal with his temper tantrums. If he's hitting .250 with, what do you end up with, 12 home runs? Like, playing subpar defense at times, regressing on defense, then it's not worth having him with his temper tantrums and with his attitude. It's just not. Yes, he could play multiple positions, and he's a good guy to have around if he's a normal person, which he's really not. He throws tantrums. He's throwing his helmet. I think he rubs the rest of the team the wrong way, and I think he is gone. I think they'll trade him for nothing, because I don't think you're going to get very much for Jeff McNeil. I also think Mark Vientos is a probable trade target, because Mark Vientos was basically sitting the last series of the year. He got in the last game, but clearly they didn't trust him. And clearly there was something with Mark Vientos. He doesn't fit with this team right now. And mostly because he swings at every slider that's a foot off the plate. He just has no ability to adjust. If it's not a fastball down the middle of the plate or up, he's just going to strike out. He's been bad. He was bad all season long. Yes, he hit 17 home runs and in limited time, but who cares? He hit 230. His OPS was, I think, in the 600s, maybe low 700s. He just wasn't very good. He can't play defense. I could definitely see Mark Vientos being traded. Acuna, I could definitely see being traded just because he doesn't really fit. And he's not at the point. He's a backup player. He's a backup infielder at this point. I don't think he's going to be a star or even a starting level player in this league. And then I think you go to the pitching staff. And I think the Mets would love for someone to take Manaea, Senga, or Peterson off their hands. I think they would love it. Because if you look at their pitching staff moving forward, you know that McLean's going to be in it. You know that Sproat is probably going to be there. Tong needs more seasoning in the minors. And that's 2 spots. And then Clay Holmes deserves a spot in the rotation. So you have those 3 spots. And I think you have to go out and get a couple more pitchers. So I think Manaea, Senga, Peterson, they would love to get rid of all of those guys. If someone would take, Manaea's money, which I don't see happening, Mets would have to eat a big portion of that contract. Or Senga, who just forgot how to pitch apparently after he got injured. I would think the Mets would love to trade Senga. Peterson, another guy who just fell apart at the end of the season. I think the Mets would love to get rid of him too. Now, will anybody take any of those guys? I doubt it. But I think the Mets would love to be able to trade one, if not all, of those guys. And I think the biggest thing the Mets could do this offseason, which I don't think is very likely to happen, is trading Nimmo. Now, Nimmo's a homegrown Met. His numbers look fine, right? You look at his end-of-the-year numbers, and they look good. He looks like he had a good season. But I'm honestly sick of seeing Brandon Nimmo. I just am. He, to me, is the epitome of this failing Mets core. He just is. He just doesn't have it. And he's regressing. And he makes $20 million a year for the next 4 years. He holds them up from doing other things. If the Mets could possibly trade Brandon Nimmo, I would be ecstatic. If someone would take that contract on, you don't have to give us anything. Give us some 17-year-old kid who nobody ever heard of him before. Go ahead. That's fine. Just take his contract and get him off the team. And I don't hate Brandon Nimmo. That's not what I'm trying to say here. I don't think he's a terrible player. I think it's just the softness of him and the fact that he's been a part of every Mets collapse in recent memory. He just has. And that's part of him being a career Met and coming up with the team and being there for a long time. That's all part of it. But he's the face of that to me. I'm not in love with Lindor right now either. But they're not trading Lindor. He's not the captain of this team. I'm sorry I ever said that. Because a team with a true captain would never allow that to happen this season. They just wouldn't. Even if they just snuck into the playoffs, they would have gotten in if they had a true captain who knew how to rally the team and get everyone pushing in the same direction. Instead of having a team of individuals like the Mets have. They do not have a team, they have a team full of individuals who want to be stars. And that's been their issue. Arrogance and individualism. Which is fine. If you want to be an individual, that's fine. Juan Soto's an individual. But he's one of the best hitters in baseball. And he performs. So you could be an individual if you are performing. But the Mets have guys like Mark Vientos who seems to want to be an individual. And he doesn't perform. So, overall, I would love to see Nimmo traded, and I think the most likely are Jeff McNeil, Mark Vientos, and Luis Angel Acuna. And I think the Mets would love to trade a few of their starting pitchers. Now, I think this offseason we're going to see what type of owner Steve Cohen truly is. When he first bought the Mets, we thought, a lot of the problem with a lot of other owners that didn't want to approve him, or even some Mets fans that weren't excited about it, was that we thought maybe he'd be like a George Steinbrenner. And he'd be, reckless and, go scorched earth and fire everybody if they have one bad year and go out there and say, spend $500 million this offseason, I don't care. And we're going to see if he is that, because this is the type of situation where that's easily explainable. If you get mad enough and then you say, especially after a year where he probably made money for the first time, I don't even know if he made money, but the ballpark was sold out every night. It seems to me like he should have, if he was ever going to make money, it would have been this year. But is he going to go scorched earth and say, go sign every player, I don't care what it costs, bring back Pete, go get Bellinger and Grisham and get every starting pitcher and trade the entire farm system, I don't care, go put out a team that can win and be dominant? Or is he going to say, fire Mendoza, get a whole new pitching staff? Is that going to happen? I don't think so. I think what's going to happen is he's going to follow Stearns' lead and take a little more measured and cautious approach going forward. I'm hoping for somewhere in the middle, because I don't want him to go scorched earth and give out bad contracts that hurt the team for the next 10 years. But I want to see him get mad, and I would love to see a press conference with Steve Cohen. I know we're getting a press conference with David Stearns at some point today. I don't know when that is. I'm sure if it's interesting, I'll make a video about it and we'll kind of go over his press conference point by point. I don't expect to hear anything new with David Stearns. He's going to give you manager speak. He's going to say, "Oh, we fell short. We had a good team. We thought we were better. Next year we'll figure some things out. We're going to have." He's just going to manage speak his way out of it. That's all he's going to do. And that's what you expect from him. He holds his cards close to the vest. He's not going to give you any information. His thoughts in his head are different than what he's telling you. And that's how he is. And that's how he's always going to be. But I would like to see Steve Cohen give a press conference and let us know how disappointed he is in this team and how this cannot happen again. And how it will not happen again. That's what I want to see. I want to see him fired up. I don't think we're going to get that. I'm sure there'll be some interview that comes out, whether it's with John Heyman or something in print, where he's going to voice his displeasure about this team. It's going to happen at some point, but I think he's going to give it some time and let himself cool down a little bit and try to go with a more measured approach. I really do. But we're going to see what he is. We're going to see for sure what Steve Cohen is in this offseason. Also, what we're going to see in this offseason is what David Stearns is really about. Because he had a terrible offseason. And he had a terrible trade deadline. And this is his one mistake. This is the one time that he can mess up. Because there's nobody really calling for David Stearns' job right now. I'm not. I'm not going to be that reactionary. Because I think you have to give him time to fulfill his plan. But if this happens again, this is his one chance. This is his one mistake. This is his one screw up. If it happens again, he should be out of here. He needs to put a team on the field next year that not only can compete, but can be dominant. That's his job. That's his job right now. He's not allowed to lose anymore. You've been here a couple years now. Your plan should be coming to fruition. And it is in a lot of ways. The Mets have the number one prospects in baseball. They have young starting pitchers who are coming up and performing at the major league level. Jonah Tong needs some more seasoning. Nolan McLean's been great. Sproat has looked good. He's had some issues going deep into games, but for the most part, Sproat's looked pretty good. And there's guys coming that will be here next year. But he has to go out there, and he has to change his philosophy. He can't go bargain bin shopping on these pitchers. He needs an ace on this team, without a doubt. Even if you end up with Senga Minaya in the rotation or part of the pitching plans, you need to make sure the top of that rotation is so solid. When you figure McLean's going to be there, you need a guy who's ahead of McLean as your ace, and you need an innings eater at number 3 in that rotation. You just do. I don't care who it is. You need an ace, and you need an innings eater. And then I think the Mets starting pitching staff would be okay. He also has to build a complete new bullpen. Right now, there's nobody coming back except for Brooks Raley. I don't honestly think anyone else is back. You need a whole new bullpen. Maybe you re-sign Diaz and then you build it out from there. But right now, all you have going into next year, that's a sure thing, is Brooks Raley. So he needs a whole new bullpen, at least 2 or 3 starting pitchers, 1 top-end guy, and a couple of innings eaters. And he needs to figure out what the problem is with this team offensively. That's his job this winter. Get a pitching staff and figure out what to do offensively with this team. Because if you go into next year with this same core of players and the same offense, why would you expect different results? It's been 5, 6 years now. 7 years that you've had this same group of players that just does not perform. You add Soto into that, you think it's going to be better, and it didn't. It wasn't any better. So there's an issue here, and that's Stearns' job to figure out how to fix that. Now, no matter what happens this offseason, what happens going into next season, the Mets organization, not just the players on the field, but the organization now has to earn back the fans' trust. This year, we were asked to show up, and we did, in record numbers for Citi Field. The game was packed every single day. And what did we get rewarded with? A shitty product that failed and embarrassed. So, guess what? The ballpark's not going to be packed in April next year when it's 58 degrees. It's just not. Because nobody's going to be excited about this team. Now, if you're telling me they go out and sign, Zach Gallen and maybe trade for Alcantara and the pitching staff looks great and they sign a bunch of studs in the bullpen, or maybe they go trade for Joe Ryan, or, maybe they get Kyle Schwarber and bring Pete back, then maybe you look at it and you say, well, listen, we're looking good and maybe people will show up then. But they have to earn that trust back, and none of that's going to happen. Let's face it. That stuff's not going to happen. They have to get people back in the stadium by performing well. That's the only way it's going to work. Because all that goodwill they accrued last season, making it to the NLCS and the vibes and the OMG and all that stuff, is gone. It's gone. That's dead. It's over. So you cannot live off that anymore, which is what they did all this year. They lived off of last season all year. Because since June, the Mets have been awful. So you lived off of last year and April and May of this year. That's the only reason people were still showing up in August and September when this team was dead in the water. So they have to earn it back. Don't expect it to be full. It's not going to happen. It's just not. At least early off in the season. Now, I just want to be clear. I am still very positive about this organization moving forward. Like I said, you have great prospects coming up, and they're all at the AAA and AA level where they're coming soon. You have Elian Pena, who's down in low A, who we think is going to be a stud, right? And you have some guys in the lower that are almost ready to make that jump up to the higher, minor league levels. But you have guys who are ready to contribute next season. And you already have a couple of them there in their starting pitchers. So I am still hopeful moving forward. I'm not going to say that I'm as confident as I was, because you can't be as confident as you were. We thought this season was going to be special, and it turned out to be an embarrassment. So the hope is that they can continue to move in the right direction, and I still think they're moving in the right direction. How many times have the Mets even been over 500 2 years in a row? Rarely ever happens. And they missed the playoffs basically on a tie. A tiebreaker cost them the playoffs this year. The Mets cost themselves the playoffs this year because they were so awful. By the way, I now hate the Marlins. I never had any issue with the Marlins. I didn't care. I thought they were a fun, scrappy team. I always kind of liked the Marlins. But the way that they celebrated yesterday, they deserve it. They won the game. They're allowed to do whatever they want. But they took such pleasure in beating the Mets. I never thought we had a rivalry with the Marlins. We don't. They do. And I guess that's fine. Whatever. But next year, you better dominate the Marlins. I don't care. I don't care who you have on this team. You better dominate the Marlins next year. They'll probably have all new players because as soon as they get decent, they start selling guys off. But you better beat the Marlins. I'm sorry. I'm sick of that team. And now you have all the other teams coming out of the woodwork, clowning the Mets, and it's expected. It's going to continue to happen. We just have to deal with it. As soon as the Mets make a big signing, we'll celebrate and everyone will bring it back up. And that's what the Mets did to us this year. They turned us in from a team that was on the rise, from a team that other teams were starting to be a little bit afraid of because they were coming and they were building something, and now they just completely collapsed and ruined all that. And that's all done. But anyway, I still have faith in Stearns and Cohen in the future of this team. And I'm done talking about 2025 now. This is my video saying goodbye to the 2025 Mets. I'm moving forward. Now we're going to be positive moving forward into next season. Look out in the next couple weeks. I'll probably have some videos about possible free agent targets and trade targets and all that kind of good stuff. If you're still here, you like this type of content, please subscribe, give me a like, and comment how you feel today about the Mets season. Because like I said, I was mad yesterday, but after sleeping on it, waking up today, I'm kind of happy. I'm happy that the torture is over, and I'm sure a lot of you are feeling the same way. And if you're not, let me know. If you are, let me know. And yeah, that's really all I got. So until next time, for the last time of the 2025 season, let's go Mets.